Weaving in ends on purl rows. You need to secure your yarn end when you first start to weave it in. Pull the yarn gently so that the last stitch maintains an even tension with those around it, and then pierce the yarn end as you work that first stitch of the weaving in. You will be splitting the yarn, which is something you usually avoid in knitting, but it works beautifully for securing the end before weaving in. Here I'm doing it twice, just for demonstration purposes. It makes the end nice and secure, ensuring that it's not going anywhere. Watch to the very end of the video to see why this is important. Method 1. Secure the end on the first stitch by piercing the yarn end. This will secure it really well. See, it's not going anywhere. Now weave in the yarn end. Purl one stitch, move the end up between the working yarn and the needles and purl the next stitch. Repeat these two movements. You are purling above and below the yarn end on each alternative stitch. You can either move the yarn up first when you're purling under the end, or you can insert the right needle into the next stitch as if to purl, then move the end up between the working yarn and the needles. Method 2. Secure the end. Now wrap the end around the working yarn from right to left and drop it down. Purl the next stitch. Wrap the end around the working yarn, drop it down, purl the next stitch, and repeat until you have woven the end in. Again, you can enter the stitch before or after you wrap the end around the working yarn. These are the two methods. They look different, but both have lovely finishes. I'll finish the swatch off camera and come back when it's done. Here is the finished swatch before blocking. This is method 1 and method 2. The yarn ends will not pull out. They will scrunch if you pull from the loose end, but then you can manipulate the fabric back into shape. Sometimes you need to manipulate quite a bit. I'm going to go block this swatch and return when it's done. Here is the swatch after blocking. You can hardly tell where that yarn was woven in, and this is done with contrasting yarn. If the same yarn color was used and it was done immediately after a color change, it would be even less visible. Why it's important to pierce your yarn end before weaving in. Most of the time it's not vital because the yarn is anchored by the stitches of the fabric. However, should you somehow snag the last or first stitch at a color change, it is possible to pull the end of the yarn out, no matter which of the two methods you used. Here you can see how easily that might happen if you snag the fabric at the right or rather wrong place. Method 2 pulls out easily, as does method 1. However unlikely, it is probably best to avoid such a possibility with a very easy fix. As I said at the beginning, just split or pierce your strand of yarn on the very first stitch when you are weaving in.